So initially what we will start off with the ADO.NET. We'll study the N-tier client server architecture. So N-tier client server architecture, first thing, we must have a client, we must have a server and a database to which we can connect to. And this is where ADO.NET steps in. ADO.NET is widely used for database connectivity only. That is what the reason and the purpose of the ADO.NET is. So we'll have the user on the extreme left hand side and he will communicate with the web server. So he will send multiple number of requests to the web server and the web server will return back the reply back to the user. And since for the communication we use the HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, so all the communication that gets routed between the client, that is the user, and the web server is all using the HTTP request and HTTP response mechanism. So client will send a request using HTTP request and the web server will process the request, generate a response and prepare a reply and send it back using the HTTP response mechanism. Now who will do it for us? Who will receive the request? Who will process it? Who will prepare a reply for it? And this is where we'll have the ASP.NET programs which will run on the web server, ActiveX server pages. So that X alphabet indicates that this is a server-side scripting language. When we say ASP.NET ActiveX server pages, so X indicates that's an indication as a server-side scripting language. The language wherein we can write the programs that can be successfully deployed on the web server. So client will generate a request, forward it to the web server will prepare a reply, send it back to the user. And this keeps on happening. This will go on. And this will go on within a window called as a session. Now, whenever the client generate a request, the web server will create a session for managing that request. And every session will have a unique ID. That is what we call the session ID. And that keeps a track of the client, that what all client is doing onto the portal, onto the website, which all pages he is browsing in, what all the what is he purchasing any something. So if he is doing online transaction on the website, what is the payment he is doing, what is his user ID, what is his password, everything is being monitored in with that particular session. And session is always one-to-one. We don't share a session among the multiple clients. If it is a read only, then yes. If it is a write only, no, we never do it as such. And all the session are time stamped. So we'll have a definite time at what they're starting and we have definite time when they're closed. So when the session are closed, when the client clicks on the logout button, then the sessions are normally legitimately closed by the web server. However, if the web server is running short of the performance is very low, the too much traffic is there, then also the web server can terminate the session abnormally also. So web server has full rights to when to start a session, when to terminate a session. Means all the session management is done at the with the help of the server side scripting language that runs on the web server. So we can have one user, multiple number of user, and maybe the user requirement is that he wants a connectivity to a database. So depending on the request being generated by the user, we may require a connection to a database for a dynamic website. For example, it could be a static website, we don't require a connection to a database. For example, if you look our own website, our own university website, we are not dynamic website. We are not asking you for any user IDs, for any password. We don't do any authentication mechanisms. We don't do any association with the client. Neither we are interested in establishment of the sessions. The client comes to the website. There are many of the hyperlinks are there. Whichever link the user is interested in, he clicks on it and the PDF get downloaded onto his machine. So we are not doing a dynamic web. Dynamic website means you are having a user ID and a password and you manage and maintain the website. You create a cookies and send for the storage onto the client machine. But we are not doing that part of the part because we are not dynamic website. We are not doing any real-time database connection. The user does not interact with the database directly as such. Now for carrying out a communication between the web server and the database server, we require the ADO.NET, ActiveX Data Objects on the .NET architecture, on the .NET platform as such. Now, ADO.NET will provide us a mechanism wherein many classes are there in the namespaces, and we can use these classes to insert a record into a database, fetch a record from the database, modify a record, delete a record. So we can do the database management with the help of the ADO.NET. So our good old three statements of the database, like your DDL, DML, and the DCL statement, data definition language statement, data modification language or data manipulation language statement, and the data control language. So ADO.NET supports almost all of them. So we can create a table, we can drop a table, we can fetch the records from the table, select star from table name, or where column name is equal to this, or update table name, set column name is equal to this, where column name is equal to this. So we can write the queries, whichever SQL queries we want, structured query, language queries, and all of them are supported by the various functions available in the classes of the namespaces in the ADO.NET. Now on the right hand side, we have this database container type. So ADO.NET will ask us to which database we would like to connect to. So we can connect to MySQL Server. Now MySQL Server, those of you who are working on it, you must be familiar with it, that by default, it receives all the requests on the port number 3306. But yes, we can always change it. So whenever you download the MySQL Server on your machine and you carry out an installation of it, on the 6th or 7th slide, it asks for the port number, that on which port number you want the server to receive a request. So by default, it will be written 3306. But then if you want, you can customize it, you can change it. But my experience says let the servers run on their default port numbers because they give the best performance on the default port number. So unless and until there's a clash of the port numbers on your machine or on the servers, do not change the default port numbers. Let the servers work, database servers work on their default port numbers. Same way, Oracle receives a request on the port number 1521. Sybase server receives a request on the port number 5000, and so on and so forth. So every server will have a default predefined port number on which it will receive a request. And yes, we can always change it, because most of the time in the interviews also the question is asked that can we change the default port number? Yes, we can always change it. But unless and until there is a clash that on a single port two servers are listening to the request, then it might create a collision. Otherwise, there's all smooth, and let the servers process the request and they receive the request on their default port number. So ADO.NET, with the help of ADO.NET, we can send the queries, SQL queries, they will be executed, and the reply will be created and returned back to the ASP.NET web pages. So all the SQL queries communication front and forth, back and forth can always take place from the ASP.NET web pages to the database servers. And then the return reply can be generated and given back to the user. So ASP.NET web pages will receive a request and then process it and then prepare a reply which will be sent using the HTTP protocol back to the end user. And we all know the default de facto protocol for web communication is always the HTTP protocol, where the web server receives a request on the port number 80. However, if we want to carry secure communication between the client and the web server, then we use the HTTPS protocol, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure mode. And for HTTPS protocol, the web server always receives a request on the port number 443. That's a default port number for all the secure communication which the web server does with the clients. So this is how the broad n-tier client server computing diagram look like. And what we are interested in right now will be a ADO.NET. How to carry out a communication between the web server to the database server. And thereafter we'll discuss about the ASP.NET programs, that how do we execute the web server website based programs. Now this is the first program that links or connects to the database. So first ADO.NET program, and let's go through the program sequentially. We have discussed the namespace earlier system. Now we will discuss two more namespaces, system.data and within system.data, the OLEDB. OLE is a object linking and embedding to the database. Now this is exclusively provided again by the Microsoft. No other operating systems, no other programming language uses the OLE as a default de facto mechanism for connecting to a database. This is something exclusively provided by the Microsoft for helping their programs to connect to a database. So we can OLEDB, object linking and embedding to a database. Now let's come to the class program, then static void main string args. Now we define the connection string. So line number 11 to line number 15 is the most important part in the entire ADO.NET, wherein we define the connection string, how to connect the program to a database. So what we do, we declare a variable of the type string, and the name of the variable is connection string, and we initialize it to what? We will have a predefined SQL construct which will be used for connecting to a database. So we will have use connection string, and we initialize with certain parameters. So what are these parameters? The first is a provider. Now provider specify that what is the name of the database driver which you are going to use for connecting to a database. Now this is a driver provided by the front end. It is not a database driver, it is a driver used by the front end C#.NET program for connecting to a database. And what is that provider? Microsoft, the name of the company, .jet, .oledb, .4.0. So we are using a Jet database engine for connecting to a database, but within that we use the OLEDB mechanism. And which version of the OLEDB you are using? 4.0. So there are various versions, 1, 2, 3, 4, but 4 is something which is very popular also, and it supports many number of the C# functions. So we say Microsoft, the name of the company, then .jet, .oledb, .4.0, and then followed by a semicolon. That means we have initialized the provider parameter with a name of the driver, a front-end programming language driver, which will be used to connect to a database. Then what is the second parameter we pass? There are various parameters. It all depends upon you how many number of parameters you would like to initialize. In the second parameter is the name of the data source, right? And then we specify that to which database it will be connected to. Now here we are connecting to the Access. So I have created a database in Microsoft Access, and the name is employee.mdb. MDB is a Microsoft database, MDB, and the name is a employee.mdb, where it is stored in the default location C drive. It is always advisable that whenever you work with the database, store them in your root drive or the master drives. Though you can save it anywhere, wherever you feel like, but always advisable, save it on your master drive or the root drive. So we just initialize only two parameters, the connection provider and the data source. Now there are two ways I can connect to my front end program to a database. One is using the Microsoft.jet.oledb.4.0, and the other is I use the ACE, access control engine. So provider is equal to Microsoft.aace, access control engine, .oledb.12.0. So there are up to 12 number of drivers are there, but still 12.0 is the most popular, widely acceptable across all the Visual Studio versions also. So Microsoft.ace.oledb.12.0. Now which driver I should use? It is advisable, if your operating system is 32-bit, use jet.oledb.4.0. If your operating system is 64-bit, use ac.oledb.12.0. However, if your operating system is 64-bit, then you can use both of them, because we always know backward compatibility is there across all the Microsoft products. If you are having 32-bit operating system, you can only use OLEDB, you cannot use the ACE. However, if you are having 64-bit operating system, you can use both of them, OLEDB.4.0 and the OLEDB.12.0. So these are the name of the driver, and the driver is a way how we connect our front end programs to the backend database. If the driver fails, then we cannot connect. So what happens in this line? It's a loading of the driver, registration of the driver with the operating system, and then preparing it so that it comes in the activation stage, wherein now we can start writing our SQL program so that they can be sent back to the database. However, if the loading of the driver fails, then no C#.NET program can connect to the backend database as such. So minimum 2 parameter which we are initializing here in the connection string, we'll do initialize more parameters. But right now, so this program demands simple program, the first program in the AG.NET, wherein we are just trying to fetch the information from the database. And it will also help us to check whether we are able to connect to a database or not. So we can use depending on the operating system, I can use jet or OLEDB.4.0 or ace.OLEDB.12.0. And the name of the database employee.mdb. Now let's have a look at this database. I go to the C drive. Is it visible employee.mdb?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So here in the employee.mdb, I've created a table called EMP, employee table. Now, the schema of the table says there are currently 6 columns inside it. So column ID, column name, column age, column address, column designation, and the column salary. CO is just an indication that this database entity is a column. Nothing, no technical significance of CO. It is just used to refer that this database entity is a column name. So column ID, the primary key, then column name, column age, column address, column designation, and the column salary. And it is populated with 2 records where we have the column ID 2 and the column ID 3. So this is how the design view of it look like. Multiple columns, and the left hand side we can say it's a primary key. We can look at the key here, and data types depending on the requirement you can play any of the data types, number, text, whatever that feels comfortable to you. So what we have done in the root drive, we created a database, MDB, Microsoft database. We gave it a name employee. So employee becomes the name of the database. Now one database can have up to 2 million tables. Up to means even nowadays we have got the data, we have more than that also. So I've created just only one table, and the name of the table is EMP, employee. And then it is currently containing the 6 columns inside it. Now, if that I close down the database, because it is always advisable that once you have dealt with the database, you have configured you created a table, you inserted a records. Then when you are interacting with your front end programming language, keep your database in the closed state. I don't say it's compulsory, but it is something called the advisable, because you might be inserting a record, you might be fetching a record, you might be deleting a record. So whenever you are doing any of the operations on a database, it is always advisable we keep it in a closed state so that the operation works successfully and no data get lost or records are not affected during the process of insertion, modification, or deletion. So having seen the database schema, we close it down and come back to our Visual Studio. And we have now seen that yes, our database exists by the name employee.mdb. Now, once we have defined the connection string properly, almost 50% of the AG.NET program gets completed here itself, because the connection string play a very important role. If you fail in the connection string, then the program will not execute. So again, if you remember the JDBC code of the Java, we say class.forName sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc driver. What does that line indicate? We are specifying the name of the driver, the type 1 driver, which will be loaded and registered with the operating system, so the user can execute the SQL queries. Or if you're using a Oracle driver, so Oracle class.forName oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So you can connect it to the Oracle driver without any problem. So programming language offers us the constructs and the mechanisms with the help of which we can connect our front-end programs to the back-end database. Now the syntax can vary. The name of the driver can vary, but the concept remains same. That does not changes at all. What Java does with the database, same way C#.NET also does with the database. Conceptually, both of them works in a similar manner. Now, we'll discuss a class called the OLEDB connection. Now, since we are already using the namespace called data.oledb in the line number 3, now we will get access to a class called OLEDB connection class. So what do we do in the line number 17? We make a call to the one argument constructor of the OLEDB connection class. And what parameter we pass to this constructor? The name of the connection string. So in the line number 17, we make a call to one argument constructor of the OLEDB connection class, and we specify or we pass on the name of the connection string as a parameter to it. Now, as we discussed earlier, everything happens, all the action take place on the right hand side of the assignment operator. So if it is successful, it will return us the information. And what will be the return information? We are going to store it into a reference variable called connection, which is of the type OLEDB connection. So initially this will be null in the connection, nothing will be there in the connection. Only when the right hand part of the assignment operator works successfully, then only in return information will come and get stored into the OLEDB class reference variable. Now since the class is OLEDB connection, so definitely we'll have the reference variable also of the OLEDB connection type only. And we all know it's for dynamic memory allocation. Once the connection gets done, that means connection string has got activated, the drivers have got loaded and registered with the operating system. Now we can open the connection. So connection is a reference variable of the type OLEDB connection, and we make a call to the open function. So that can open a connection to a database. Now we can fetch certain information about the connection which we have just established. So there are certain predefined functions which we will make a call. So from the line number 19, if we see console.writeLine connection state colon, then we specify the placeholder. This is the first placeholder with the index position 0. Then we say connection.state. What is the state of the connection? It will display it. Then in the line number 20, what is the name of the provider? So OLEDB provider colon curly braces 0 quotes closed comma and the connection.provider. Connection we all know, it's a reference variable of the OLEDB connection. Then provider is the name of the static variable or a property whose value will be fetched and displayed to the user. Then what is a version of the server which we are using? So that will also get displayed. So we have got a predefined property or a variable name from the OLEDB connection class. It is not a function. So there are no opening closing parentheses. So it is not something like this. We are not making a call to any function. These are all the static variable or a predefined property which are just called as their names, and they just fetch the value at the runtime and display it. So connection.server version will display the current version of the server which we are using. Then we would also like to display the connection string, that what is the name of the provider and what is the name of the data source. Data source refer to database only. So it's not a continuous variable. There is a space inside it, data space and the source. So connection string, again we just say connection dot connection string, and the value of the connection string will be fetched and displayed to the user. Then what is the name of the data source we are using? So for that also we have got a property by the name connection. So we say the data source is connection dot data source, and it will be the value will be fetched and displayed to the user. So again, just like what we have done earlier, you press dot, the IntelliSense compiler will invoke up and will display what are the other properties associated with a connection. So begin transaction, change database, close, connection string, connection timeout. If you want to time out your connections, you can even do that. What is the name of the database? Many number of the predefined functions are available from where they are available. They're all available in the OLEDB connection class, because this connection is a reference variable of OLEDB connection class, which is used for connecting the front-end C#.NET programs to the back-end databases. So all of them are the predefined. Depending on the requirement, we can invoke one of them or multiple one of them. So connection dot, we restore our code, data source, and that concludes the program. Thereafter, we can make a call to close, because it is always advisable whenever you are dealing with the database. Once you open the connection, perform the transactions, you must close down the connection. We should not leave the database connection in the open state. That is a good programming practice. Even if you don't close it, the operating system and the Visual Studio will take care of it. But it is always good programming practice that we as a programmer, once we have opened the connection, we should close it down. So there are no garbage collection, no intermediate records get fired up, and nobody try to hacks into our database. Then just a blank line, console.readline, and then we close down the program. So we execute the program, the first program for the AD.NET. So we can see the output command prompt window. Connection state is open. The OLE driver which we are using is the Microsoft.jet.oledb.4.0. So the server version is 4. And the connection string, the entire connection string get displayed. Provider Microsoft.jet.oledb.4.0, data source, and the employee.mdb. And the data source name is employee.mdb. Now here my operating system is 64-bit. So that gives me the convenience and the comfort to use both the drivers, the 32-bit driver as well as the 64-bit drivers. If I want to use 64-bit drivers, what I do, I comment the connection string value, and just like this. Oh. And I uncomment the lines for the driver supported for 64-bit operating system, Microsoft.ace.oledb.12.0, and then I run the program. And now I can see that the driver which has come in the activation stage is ace.oledb.12.0. So we need to specify the name of the driver properly. If you look at the way it has been written, the name of the company is there with M in capital, and thereafter the name of the drivers is in the uppercase, ACE again in the uppercase, .oledb again in the uppercase, and then the version number. So when you try it on your own machines, take care of the way we write the name of the driver class, because it is case sensitive. It may not work. It may not be able to load it properly. If you specify, since it is case sensitive, it may not be able to locate the driver on your system. So specify it properly. Same way, the name of the database. Make sure you give the default location as master drive or root drive, though you can give it anywhere on your system. But I have always experienced that the performance of database is always up, and it is very good when you store it onto master drive or the root drive of your system, because it becomes easy for the operating system to communicate with any entity which is present onto the C drive. So don't, and that too, do not store in the multiple folders, just directly onto the root drive, so that in one hop the operating system is able to access the database and fire the SQL queries. So that is all about it. So we start with the very first line, using system, then using system.data, then using system.data.common. So today we'll use the namespace that is system name common. So data use करेंगे and data के अंदर common. That is what we are going to use. Primary objective of this program is to get the information about all of the .NET providers which are present on your system. So depending on the multiple number of databases which you would have installed on your system, maybe Access, Oracle, DB2, Informix, it will try to display the information about these providers. So let's scroll through the code. Class, in the name of the class, then public static void main, string, args. I hope by now everyone is comfortable and familiar with the code. Only thing that we need to remember that the M remains in the uppercase. Rest all the first alphabet of every word goes in the uppercase. Then we come to the line number 9. Using, we don't require because we're already using right at the top. So if we want, we can skip the using part. we can directly come to this line. We are invoking a function called get factory classes of the DB provider factories class. So this is a class that is containing information about all the database providers. That is why the name itself is database provider factories. Again, if you remember the server side programming, we have got something like a connection factory. We have got connection pooling. So in the connection factory, we'll have a huge connections which can be facilitated from the front end to the back end. So just like we got connection factories, same way we got database provider factories. Connection factories is used in the Java, advanced Java, in the Hibernate and the Springs. And here we use a database provider. What are the number of the database provider factories which are possible? And we make a call to the function get factory classes. So G, F and C goes in the uppercase. So we'll make a call to this function. Now, if the function call is successful, it will return us the information about the multiple number of the ADO.NET database providers. So what we are doing, we are instantiating the data table class. So we are creating a reference variable of the data table class, and it is called as a provider. So we can see in the tooltips, local variable data table providers. So this provider reference variable is a reference variable of the data table class. And where is the data table present? In the common. So we are already using the system.data.common. So accessibility will be provided both through data table as well as the DB provider factories. Now we come to the line number 11. It's a small program, hardly 20 lines of code probably, with curly braces, so many. Then since we will receive multiple number of the ADO.NET data providers, we need to iterate one by one through all of them. So what we use a for each loop, and we start the data row. Now data row is again present in the namespace. We already have a namespace ready, system.data.common. So data row represents a row of data in a data table. We can see the description in the tooltip that is getting displayed. So we would like to navigate through each and every row of the data table. So data row is more like a pointer pointing to a specific row of the data table. And what is data table containing? The list of the multiple number of ADO.NET data providers available on your systems. So if you've got multiple databases, so we'll have multiple number of the ADO.NET data providers. If you've got only one database, it will only display only once. In providers, provider is already a reference variable dot rows. So it's more like a container, a logical container, and it will iterate and one by one across all the rows of the container. Now, as it is iterating, we are fetching the values and displaying it. So we say console.writeLine name, then the placeholder, that is the index position 0, then prof. What is a prof here? The reference variable of the data row. So data row prof in providers.row, and we fetch the value of the name. Then we would like to obtain the description. So in the line number 15, we write console.writeLine description, curly braces 0, prof, and the description of the data provider, ADO.NET data provider. Then the invariant name, is it containing any invariant name or not? Some of them might be containing, some of them may be skipping it as such. But then the field is present, why not we use it? So provider, then within square brackets, within quotes, the invariant name associated with that in ADO.NET data provider. And then the for loop will go on, and it will iterate or navigate through each and every row of the data table one by one with the help of the data row. Then we close down the for loop, close down the data table, just write the console.readline for making sure that command prompt window is hold for a small duration of time, and then we close down the class and close down the namespace. So we can see the execution of the program to see what is the output it is going to give us. Are we able to see this command prompt window? Anyone can say quick yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So if you look at the top, it says available ADO.NET data providers. So the name is ODBC data provider by the Microsoft. ODBC is an object or open database connectivity. Again, it is supported only by the Windows operating system of the Microsoft. We can't use ODBC on any other operating system. It is exclusively for the Microsoft. Then description we get .NET framework for database provider, and the invariant name is system.data.odbc. Then depending on your system and the databases you have installed and the .NET provider present, it will display all of them one by one. So this is for the OLEDB, name, description and area invariant. Then I've got Oracle installed on my system. So Oracle client data provider, system.data.oracle client for the SQL server, SQL client data provider, .NET framework data provider for SQL server, then DB2, then Informix. It all depends upon the number of the databases you have installed on your system. So the biggest plus point of this program, it gives you the entire information that what are the different area.NET data provider which are available, and you can use them for connecting your front end C#.NET program to the backend databases. So MySQL, all of them are present here, and then we can use them. We can design a database within these servers, database servers, and then create a table, and then use it to for the DDL, DML, or the DCL statement, data definition language, data manipulation language, and the data control language statements. So that is how the program works. Now this was a program that displayed the information about the .NET data providers, and we were able to get the information successfully. Now what if I want to perform the DML queries into the database? So what we can do, we can discuss the next program that talks of the same thing. Yeah. So we'll continue to use the object linking and embedding. We'll change it later on. Right now though, we'll try to explore the program as much as possible concerned with the object linking and embedding only. So using system.data, using system.data.oldb, just like what we did yesterday. Same we'll do it today. Then class and the class name, then static void main, string and the args. Now we provide the connection string, and we again specify two parameters in the connection string. First is the provider and second is the data source name. Now we know if we have got 32-bit operating system, we'll use a Microsoft.jet.oldb.4.0. That's the name of the provider class. And if you've got 64-bit OS, then we'll use the ACE. Now why I'm repeating all these things again and again, so that you can have these things stored in your mind, that yes, when to use which kind of the provider. What we used to call the drivers in the Java terminology, like JDBC always use the word drivers. We have got four kind of driver: type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4 in the JDBC. So they always refer to the word drivers. Here we will not use the drivers, we'll use provider. So internally they are driver only, nothing else. But then externally, the way the C#.NET terminology goes, they use the word providers. So we'll refer to it as a provider only. So we create a reference variable connection string of the type string, and we initialize the parameter provider and specify the name of the provider. So Microsoft Access Control Engine OLEDB.12.0. Only thing we need to remember, the M of the Microsoft goes in the uppercase, the rest all goes in the lowercase for the Microsoft, and ACE and OLEDB again goes in the uppercase. Then data source, we use the same data source which we have referred yesterday, Microsoft Database MDB, so that you can also do it parallelly on your system. Almost every one of you will be having the Microsoft Office on your system. So you can create a database and access and then link it to the C#.NET program. That's the first step toward moving towards the databases. That one should be comfortable or handling the access databases. So we have seen the description of the access database. It is containing 6 columns. If you were not present yesterday, then we can have again the information about the access database. So we go to the employee database. This is the access database on our system. So access is the name of the database is employee, and it containing the table EMP. and it's containing 6 columns: ID, name, age, address, designation, and the salary. So in the Microsoft Office, there will be we'll have Word, Excel, PowerPoint. We'll also have Access. So you can open the Microsoft Access and design a database. Something what I've done here. The name is employee.mdb. So MDB is a Microsoft database. You can also have the .accdb. So we can create a database with either of the two extensions, .mdb or .accdb, the way they support it, the Microsoft Access, and also the version which you are having on your system. The latest version may not support .mdb, it just may go and support only the .accdb, but the backward compatibility is there. So your MDB database will also work on the newer version of the Access. Then we go and create the table called employee, and then this is the rows, number of rows in the table. Only 2 rows are there. We can go and insert more rows if we want. And the design view, how the table look like. This is the design view of the same, containing the name of the column, ID, name, age, address, designation, and the salary. CO is just a column. This is a database entity. So we are just referring to the column. Column ID, column name, column age, column address, column designation, and the column salary. So once our database is there in place and we have seen it, we can close it down and come back to the Visual Studio program. So our provider is ready, and so is our data source. Now we can write the program to fetch the records from the table of the database. So for that, we have also discussed a class before called OLEDB connection, and the name itself tells this is a class provided by the object linking and embedding database mechanism only for dealing with the connections, that is connection from the front end C#.NET program to the backend database. So what do we do here? We make a call to the one argument constructor of the OLEDB connection class, and we have already imported the required namespaces at the top, so we will not have a problem because we are already importing system.data.oledb, right? So we pass the name of the connection string as a parameter. Now at this point of time, the Visual Studio in conjunction with the Windows operating system will try to load and register this driver so that the user can perform the required DDL, DML, and the DCL statements. So if this process of loading the driver and the registration of the driver is successful, then we will have the return information regarding the driver in the connection reference variable. And this connection is a reference variable of the OLEDB connection class. So OLEDB connection and the connection. So everything will happen, all the action will take place on the right hand side of this assignment operator. And once it is successful in establishing a connection, then the return information will be stored into this connection reference variable. Now we can go and open the connection. So we say connection dot and we make a call to the open function. This will actually open the gates, and now we can go to the database and start firing our SQL queries. Now what do we like to do with the database? So let's say if I want to fetch all the records from the employee table of the database. So which database we are referring to? Something what we initialize in our data source reference variable, data source variable, that is employee.mdb. So we are fetching that records of this particular. We are fetching the records of this table which is residing in this database employee.mdb. So we prepare our SQL string, and now it's a time to link it with the connection. So what do we do? For that we have got the OLEDB command class. So we make a call to the two argument constructor of the OLEDB command class and pass the information about our SQL statement, which is select star from table, and the connection, because there could be multiple connections from the front end to the back end databases. So which connection we are using? So we need to pass the connection, because if your system is having the SQL Server and the MySQL Server and the Informix and the DB2 and the Oracle, then you need to specify that your connection is currently referring to which database. That is why we are passing two parameters here. One is the SQL statement, that is your select star from table, or any other kind of the statement which you want like to pass through your OLEDB command. and the name of the OLEDB connection class reference variable, which is connection in this case. Now the two parameter we are passing, and means how do we read this line? We are making a call to the two argument constructor of the OLEDB command class. If it is successful in its execution, that means it is able to locate the SQL statement as well as the connection, then the return information we can archive or store into the OLEDB command class reference variable called CMD. So after the execution of line number 22, CMD is a very important reference variable now. It is containing everything. It knows the information about the provider, it knows the information about the database, it knows the information about the SQL query which the user will try to fire. Now how do we fire? We have got a function called execute reader. It belongs to the OLEDB command class. So we make a call to the execute reader function, and how do we associate it? We say cmd.execute reader. So execute reader is a function of the OLEDB command class. Now if it is successful in execution of the SQL statement, it will return us the information. Since the function being called is of the reader type, so definitely on the left hand side of the assignment operator, we will have a class that deals with the reader only. And that the correct class is OLEDB data reader. So we store the information into a OLEDB data reader class reference variable called the reader. Now this reader is more like a repository container which will have a multiple number of records which have been fetched from the database, and it is archiving it in the front end. So since it is again a logical container or a repository, we need to iterate it through all the records one by one. So how do we use it? We start with a while loop, and we say while reader.read function. Now the read function will fetch the records and display it to the user. But how long it will go on? As long as there are records in the container of the reader. So we say while reader.read. So as long as it returns true, you keep on because you can see the return value is boolean. So either true or false. So as long as it returns true, the while loop will keep on moving on. It will continue to remain in this stage of execution. And we'll keep on fetching the records and display it to the user. So there are 6 columns in our table of the database. So we have written the console.writeLine statement 6 number of times. So the employee ID is, and the placeholder reader 0. Then employee name is again placeholder reader and the square bracket 1. So it will fetch the information of the first column of the first record from a reader, which is our logical container. So 0 is the indexing position for the first column, then 1 for the second column, then second for the third column, and so on till all the columns are there. And reader, we know it's a reference variable of the OLEDB data reader. Though we could have merged all these 6 lines and concatenated into single line also, and written the placeholder 0, comma, curly braces 1, comma, curly braces 2, comma, curly braces 3, comma, curly braces 4, and comma, curly braces 5. But just for the sake of simplicity, I have written it 6 number of times so that you can able to understand it easily, and then no problem should arise, no ambiguity should arise. So employee ID is 0. It will fetch the information from the first column, then employee name, then employee age, employee address, employee designation, and the employee salary. Then we can display a blank line, console.writeLine. So depending on number of the records which are there in the table of the database, it will fetch all those records, and the records have come into the reader, and then we are iterating through each and every record of the reader with the help of the while loop. And then once we have used the reader, it is always a good programming practice that we close it down. So we say reader.close. Make a call to the close function associated with the reader. Then if I want to have a count that what are the total number of records in the table of a database. So what do? We say select count star, and that is a normal SQL query we write in the database, nothing related to the C#.NET. This is a normal query we normally write in the databases to count the total number of records in the table of a database. So select count staff from and the name of the table. So it will return. So where do we store that information? We already have got the OLEDB command class at the top. OLEDB command class. We already got a reference variable called CMD. So for of that we again make use of it. So we say CMD dot and the command text. Now this is already, if you write here CMD dot and the multiple number of the function associated with the OLEDB command class will go and get displayed here. So here we are using only one of them, but we can see that CMD is a reference variable of the OLEDB command. So moment you press CMD dot, and we can see whole lot of the functions are present here, and we are using here one of them, execute scalar. But there are many number of functions, and the information about all of them is present in the help which we have seen of the Microsoft portal. Very good help is there. It takes each and every function one by one and describes it, what is the purpose and meaning of it. So we restore the program and we run. So we make a call to the execute scalar, which is associated with the OLEDB command class. That's the name of the function, so it will have the opening closing parenthesis. So command dot execute scalar. Now since we are finding the row count, how many number of rows are there in the table of the database, so it will be integer value. It is always advisable to typecast it into integer variable and we store into a counter variable of the integer type. And then we can display the same thing back to the user. Total rows returned are, and since the right now the value is an integer, and we know both Java and C#.NET, when you are dealing with the input output, it is always advisable that we deal in strings. So we make a call to the toString function over the integer variable. And thereafter we close down the program. It is always advisable that whatever is being opened, you close it down. So reader.close is being called, then connection which was open is now being closed, and then console.readline just to hold the command prompt window. So I hope the program is easy to understand. Only thing is that we need to remember these name of the classes, and they come on tips once you start doing the programming. If you are dealing with the database, you will keep on seeing the code again and again. You will keep on writing the code, and slowly you get associated with these classes. Yeah, these are the name of the classes. These are the parameters they pass. Initially, for the first time, you might have a difficulty in understanding it, but later on, when you keep doing it, then you develop more like a friendship with these classes. You keep on remembering their names, what are the parameters they pass. So here what we are using is the OLEDB connection class for dealing with the connection. Then we are using the OLEDB command class that will do the binding or the association of the connection string and the SQL statement. That's the second class which we are using here of the OLEDB. Third class which we are using is a OLEDB data reader, because this is a class that provides, this is a class which will act as a repository or a container from where we are going to fetch the multiple number of records and display to the user. So how do we get the information into the reader? We make a call to the execute reader function of the OLEDB command class. This will help us to get the information about the multiple rows. It will fetch the record from the table of the database from the back end. It will come to the front end, and this is a logical container which is getting created in the front end, not in the back end. So let us say there are 25 records in the table of a database. 25 records will go and come fetched in the front end part. That is the programming language part. So in the RAM, a cache will be created, a small buffer space will be there, and the records will be archived there. Now we need, as a programmer, as a user, we need to fetch the records which are being archived into the reader. So for that, we make a call to the read function associated with the OLEDB data reader. So it will keep on fetching, and how long it will keep on fetching? As long as it returns a value true. So we can see it's returned the Boolean type, true or false. So as long as there are records in the container, it will keep on fetching one by one. And then moment it encounters null, the while loop terminates, and then we close down the reader. Now the second part of the program was, what if I want to find what are the total number of records in the table of a database. So we know simple SQL query, select count staff from and the name of the table. But how to execute it? For that, we make a call to the execute scalar function. Now these are predefined function. We are just invoking them up. We are just calling them up. And for that, we have already made a call to the namespace right at the top, OLEDB. It's already available. So we will make a call to these functions, and the function will help us to execute these SQL queries in the backend. And the return value will come, and we typecast it and store it into the counter variable. And then we can display it back to the user. Total rows returned are, and the counter dot toString, because right now the value of the counter is integer. We need to typecast it into a string and display it back to the user. So now we can go and execute the program. So now we can see on the command prompt window, there were two records in our table of the database, one with the employee ID 2, one with the employee ID 3. So in the reader, OLEDB data reader reference variable, which is a logical container, two records have been fetched. And we start with the while loop, and while loop kept on going and till it reached to the null. Then no more records are there in the repository or the container. So two records have been fetched. Employee ID is employee name, employee age, employee address, employee designation, and the employee salary. And then we wrote this SQL query, select count star from and the table name, that is employee. And we use the command.execute scalar function to fire it. And we can see the number of records here are 2. So that is how the code works.